February 2nd, 1996, Washington, D.C. 2 students and 1 teacher killed, and 1 other wounded when 14-year-old Barry Lukatis opened fire on his algebra class. February 29th, 2000. 6-year-old Kayla Rowland shot dead at Buell Elementary School. The assailant was identified as a 12-year-old boy with a .32 caliber handgun. October 10, 2007. A 14-year-old student at a Cleveland high school shot and injured 2 students and 2 teachers before he shot and killed himself. All 3 examples stated involve male adolescents who came from well-rounded families, had relatively promising school results, and all liked to play video games after a day of school. From all outward appearances, they seemed like normal schoolboys who enjoyed a video game after a day of learning. But inside there was something much more sinister going on, evident in their actions making national headlines. A key question remained: why did they all do it? The actions of these boys highlighted an issue that was already prominent on the public agenda. Violent video games caused violence. But is this manifestation as straightforward as it seems? Was it solely the video games, which these teens were subjected to, that drove them to murder? The reality of this social discussion is no. Violent video games are not to blame. For as long as media has existed within society, there has been constant conversation that questions the impacts of young people being exposed to violent images and their ability to participate in this digitally. Media debate has heightened moral panic, affecting the logic of the public, which is firmly anchored in the silver bullet and hypodermic needle concepts of media influence. So where and why do moral panics originate? How has society come to the conclusion that video games cause violence? Firstly, moral panic spawns from people who do not even partake in the act which they claim is threatening. Therefore, their assumptions are often subjective and uneducated. For example, a common myth about video games is that they are all violent and played by teenagers. However, a study by Bond University in 2013 revealed that in fact, the most popular video games are puzzle games, and that the average age of a gamer is actually 32 years old. Myth busted. Another score on the tally board against video games is that violent video games cause violence. Critics concede that today's youth is being corrupted by video games and that this is leading to more crime. Wrong. According to the most recent research from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, as video game sales rise and the virtual world expands, the number of crimes across Australia declines. This brings me back to my main argument. Just because there is a correlation does not mean there is causation. Lastly, there are common held assumptions that the majority of video games are violent and are rated M15+ or above. This is false. Stephen Harrington states that the percentage of video games that were classified G or PG in 2013 was 68%. Ironically, in the film industry, only 37% of films produced were rated G or PG, which is a mainstream form of entertainment. But no one has raised the question of violent films being the cause of violence in teens. So why does the stigma and correlation between violent video games and violence persist? Well, the public chooses their targets selectively. These negative connotations are always aimed at pop culture, new media, and media for kids. Every time a new form of media becomes mainstream, we need to find something wrong with it. Shakespeare, the Bible, the news show and describe heavy amounts of violence. So why is there no public outrage for these media outlets? Because blaming it on violent video games implicitly provides an easy answer to a complex problem. Furthermore, because the studies are scientific and therefore replicable, society believes the information on violent video games is credible and factual. As you can see, the media has become a scapegoat. With every new perceived threat to society comes claims of devastating influence to the innocent minds of our children. The results have sprung from an ill-conceived assumptions and poorly constructed research models. Yes, there are violent video games. Yes, there is violent adolescence, but until any causative relationship is proven between the two, the panic must stop.